I'm doing this video because I'm tired of people saying how bad capitalism is and how great socialism is. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about American capitalism, but we're going to talk about a period of time called the Gilded Age and the Progressive Era. It's roughly between, say, 1870 and 1930. We're going to talk about that time in America. Now, I'm going to mention a couple of things that may have been invented before that period of time, but really became top-notch and became part of our lives during that time. And I may also talk about some things that were not created in America, but once they came to America, they became huge. Let me first of all start by saying, let's talk about a couple of things that was created in that great period of American capitalism that we see today that really haven't changed that much. I guess what I'm saying is these were one in a time of humanity. They were implemented and just enhanced afterwards. Let's start with a light bulb. An incandescent light bulb invented by Edison. Now we have LEDs. It's still a light bulb. Sewage treatment, which came during then. You may use different things to filter sewage treatment, but it still filters waste. A telephone is a telephone, whether it's connected to a line or whether it's wireless. It's still the concept was developed at that time. Automobiles to EVs. We can talk about internal combustion engines going into tractors in that time. Roads, dirt roads, gravel, tar, brick became asphalt, but they're still roads. Once in a time creation in humanity enhanced. Electricity, although electricity was developed earlier, electricity is electricity. We use it the same way we used it 100 years ago. Let's go back for a moment and let's talk about the period of time before all these innovations happened and how people lived. There were no medical standards. Food contamination was a common thing. It was common when people bought bread. They got shavings of wood in the bread. Milk, when people bought milk, there was chalk in the milk. Horses and human waste. There were, in America, prior to that time, there were 21 million horses. 21 million horses. So imagine the horse waste, how that had to be handled before you had the great period of American expansion and American capitalism. Drinking water. People had to transfer water from their house, whether in the city or in the suburbs or in rural areas, constantly during the day for washing, cooking, bathing, cleaning, drinking. During that time, before this great period of innovation, women's lifetimes were shorter than men's. Women died before men. The reason why was because of childbirth. A lot of women died in childbirth. We had no public schools. Think about lighting. It went from whale oil to kerosene. Really not much light. There were a few doctors in medical schools. Meat and fish, root vegetables, and salted meats were really all that was available. There were few fruits. And most of the meals were pot meals, like a stew, because it would be easier to be cooked. But here's something to think about. With all these horses that died and all the horse and human waste, there were no window screens. So that means that flies and mosquitoes used to come into the houses and infect people. Disease rates were very high. something that's never mentioned when you look at just raw numbers, leisure time was very little. People had very leisure time. Women during those days had to sew and darn clothing, and there was no commercial manufacture of clothing back then. In the cities, there were no steel frame buildings. They were made of wood or made of some type of iron. They usually were not more than 2 stories tall. There was no plumbing. People used privys outside or maybe in the building. There were problems with lighting and gas explosions in the cities. The roads were all dirt roads. And here's a little brief story. Why men walk outside and women walk inside in cities is because back in those days, chamber pots would be served out the window, and it would hit the man and not the woman. But the rich and poor in the cities lived pretty close together because you really had to walk to work. In 1872, there was a horse plague in the East Coast, and the cities were locked down. They believe it came from Toronto. Now, also think about in the cities, now you have to support this horse environment, which means you had to stable them overnight. You had to feed them. They had to drink. The removal of horse carcasses in the city was commonplace. Accidents, multiple accidents in the city with people being killed by horses. And if you've ever had a chance to read The Jungle by Sinclair Lewis, you can imagine what the meatpacking industry was like. Let's talk now a little bit about what it would be like living in rural area. You'd be living in a one-room house. Your outhouse would be where you go outside and relieve yourself. Well water would be used for bathing. You would shop at a one general store. There was no mail delivery at home. There were no roads. People didn't really go more than 25 miles from where they lived. There was little leisure time. People usually had 2 pairs of clothes back then. Isolation. Very dusty roads. But I thought about this. People feared darkness. Think about that. We take life for granted, but imagine being in the woods somewhere with your family and the sun goes down. People feared darkness. And also, just on the sidebar, once lighting came, it allowed man now to work a 24-hour day. But let's just get back to the rural stuff. As I said, the women would spend most of their time sewing clothing, fetching water, chopping wood, hunting, plowing. It was not a great time before then. Now, what did American capitalism during that period bring to us that we use now and help them? Sewing machines, commercial sewing machines, American university systems, hospitals, doctors, electricity, purified water, sewage systems, disease-free, pasteurized milk, bread that was protected, fresh vegetables, fruits, meats, appliances, railroads, trucks, tractors, radio, telephone, and even the Federal Reserve System, a modern banking system, public schools, phonographs, motion pictures, light bulbs, the actual application of the combustible engine, a shortened work week, more working hours, skyscrapers, natural gas, air conditioning, skyscrapers, elevators, processed foods, consumer credit, subways, national parks, highways, the Food and Drug Administration. The list goes on and on and on. The Panama Canal, plastics, leisure time, immigration. And for American blacks, it brought a great time of wealth. It brought a great time for entrepreneurships. I would believe more patents were filed by anyone, and a lot of patents were filed by American blacks. They benefited from that. American patents were highly sought afterwards. People came over. X-ray machines, manifest destiny. So the robber barons weren't really that bad if you look at it. The Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, and the Harrimans. When you look at what they brought us, they even brought us jazz. I think I might have proven to you what would life have been without this period of time. Is capitalism really that bad? Think about it. If you like this, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscription, and have a great day. Bye.